David Birch, you're like a future of banking guru.
Yeah, you are
right?
much too kind, but thank you.
And you meet quite a lot of bankers, fintech startups and whatnot. What if you were CEO of a traditional bank, old traditional bank, for 1 year? How would you deal with blockchain? What would you do?
Well, I think there's a context to this, which is to do with the shift in the competitive landscape that's coming. We have to find a way to radically reorganize the way that we're delivering these services into the mass market, because we have this raft of competitors coming now, the challenger banks that we call them, but also you see now you have companies like Klarna, Adyen, Clearbank. These people are all getting banking licenses and moving into position to compete. And then around the corner, of course, we have the new competition, Amazon and Google and Facebook and things like that. So we used to have a very stable competitive landscape. I mean, you may have been unhappy with the way banks reacted to that, but we all understood how the competition worked, how to bring new technologies in. Blockchain doesn't fit in that same way. I think in many ways the blockchain, and the first discussions in banks, of course, were, well, can we use the blockchain to send bitcoins around or to send money or whatever?
Still, this is still what they're discussing, right?
Of course, but the point is it doesn't really make any difference to banking business. I mean, if we can make a small reduction in how much it costs to send money from one bank to another bank, who cares? But there are other aspects of the blockchain which I think are actually more important when you look at the structural changes in the sector. And one of the ones that I'm most interested in is transparency, because it seems to me that one of the reactions to the last financial crisis that we haven't yet properly dealt with is this need for better transparency around financial markets. We've seen many scandals, interest rate fixing and all this kind of stuff. And I don't think we formulated the right response to that yet. And so it seems to me that if we think of blockchain, big picture stuff, if we think of blockchain more of a regtech rather than a fintech, then what we will do is we'll stop taking the blockchain and see if we can kind of jam it, make it fit into the existing way we do things.
Yeah.
You know, can we take the blockchain and make it run Swift or something? Which is difficult because Swift has spent 50 years, building their systems and optimizing them. I think there's a different way of thinking which says, here we have this new platform, this shared ledger with the consensus forming, which we've never had before. Is it actually possible that we could construct different kinds of financial markets on top of this new platform, where the overall cost was much less, because the costs that are out of control aren't the costs of IT, and the costs that are out of control are the costs of know your customer, anti-money laundering, counter-terrorist financing. It's the cost of regulating the markets that we could attack. So if we can make sending money a little bit cheaper, who cares? If we can make the cost of running a bank and regulating a bank and running a financial market, if we can collapse that cost, then everybody is much better off.
Yeah, but if you do that as one bank, that can't be, right? You have to do it as a group of banks or the whole financial sector, maybe. So how, again, if you were the CEO, what would you do? Call up your colleagues?
Actually, what I would be very tempted to do would be to start a different kind of market. So, and actually, for example, if you look at the situation right now, the last few days, everyone's been crazy about the token offerings, initial coin offerings. There's blatant market manipulation and I mean, they're inevitable lawsuits. But the idea itself isn't crazy. The idea that instead of traditional equities, instead of traditional debt, you take something that's somewhere in between. You take this kind of new monetized form of future claims on corporate products and services, and you put that out as a cryptocurrency which people can freely trade. Mm-hmm. Actually, that's not crazy, and that reconnects with some old ideas about new forms of asset classes for trading. So I would be very tempted, rather than use the blockchain to see if I can make some processes a little bit quicker, would be to say, okay, why don't we look at something like token offerings, which is a completely new way of doing things, and construct a regulated, responsible, managed environment to do this, which in time will drain liquidity away from those more opaque markets because it offers more value to the participants. So I would tend to think more like that. Let's not tear the bank down and rebuild it. Let's use the new technology to try to do some new things in a different way.
To build a new market, basically.
To build new markets. I think this is the way forward.
Yeah. Do you think that bank CEOs actually see this, or are they still thinking about, making faster money transfers of cheaper ones? Or
I don't think they think about any of that. I mean, I would have thought, I've never been a bank CEO, you'll have to ask one of the guys that's here today, I would have thought they spend 90% of their time thinking about regulation, because that's what drives... Look, if you look at the cost breakdown for, let's say for an average European bank, large average European bank, you may see an IT budget in the, let's say 2 billion euros. So you have 2 billion euros a year to spend on fantastic technology. But 90% of that goes on maintaining the legacy infrastructure. Someone has to keep the lights on, make sure the ATMs work, make sure the checks get processed. So that leaves you a couple of $100 million to spend on new products and services. But 90% of that spending goes on responses to regulatory changes. Basel II, ring fencing, PSD2, whatever. The actual amount of money that a bank has to spend on anything really new is really quite limited. So my honest answer is I don't know. I've never been a bank CEO, but I really don't think they wake up thinking about blockchain first thing in the morning. I'm sorry to say.
Let's check with Wiebe Dreyer
in
a few minutes. Yes. Okay, so your book, you wrote a book in 2014, and there's another one coming, right?
Yes, my new book is out this month, actually. It's being released at Money 2020 in Copenhagen.
Yeah, it's called Before Babylon Beyond Bitcoin. From money we understand to money that understands us.
Yeah.
How can money understand me?
Well, it was going to be called I was going to call it From Dumb Money to Smart Money.
Okay.
But this is a much better title. I want to say a couple of things with the book. First of all, I want people to understand the big picture. Before Babylon, before people began recording, there was money, there were ways of doing business, and Bitcoin is not the end of an evolutionary tree. Mm-hmm. It will continue to evolve past Bitcoin in new ways. I wanted to make that big picture. But I wanted to introduce, and I wanted to help people think about some of these things a little more clearly, which I hope I've been able to do. But I also want to introduce this kind of fundamental thought. The money we understand, most people in the street, I remember going to an event in the UK a couple of years ago, and a very intelligent, very well-informed, educated journalist asked me a question which made it very clear that they thought there was gold in the vault of the Bank of England that sat behind every note in circulation, which hasn't been true for... since the 1930s. People think of money as this kind of tangible thing that they understand.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that's not been true for a couple of generations.
No.
Money, in reality, is entirely dematerialized. But the way people think about money and the way they understand money is as this tangible thing. But a euro doesn't know where it's been. It's still dumb. Right? People think they understand it. They don't. But it's dumb. A Bitcoin knows where it's been. It knows who had it. It knows what it was used for. There are lots of people. In fact, it was just presented at the conference.
Because it registrates ownership, right?
Yeah. There's a link to identity. Gartner just presented a view of the future of blockchain, which was very centered on smart contracts and what they call programmable economics. Now, I'm very sympathetic with that view, because I think the ability to run these new kinds of shared applications on top of the shared ledgers is an epicenter for innovation. I'm sure people are going to think of some amazing things to do in that space, which I can't think of because I'm old. But I can sort of see that that's where there could be some amazing innovation in that kind of smart contract thing. But that means smart money. Like, what if you have suddenly money? Like, let's say I decide I want to use, I don't know, Islamic gold money. I prefer that, right?
Yeah.
Or what happens if some people in the Netherlands decide, well, we're going to have our own guilder back. We'll just create our own guilder and we'll use that. Or if people in London decide, we want London money, we don't want sterling money.
But how can this
These monies won't be dumb monies, they'll be smart monies.
Yes, but how will this guilder money understand me?
Well, because what if you go and spend it on something and it tells all of its friends, right? I mean, the money knows what it's being used for. It knows that you gave it to another person. It knows that you spent it on alcohol. I mean, whatever, I'm picking silly examples. But the point is, if Gartner are right, and I think they are, that we're moving into this world of programmable money, then the fact that that money is smart means we are moving into a very different world, which could be wonderful if society was deciding, like, what kind of money do we want? What do we want money to do? And then the technologists could go and implement it. Right now, it's the wrong way around. The technologists are implementing these new forms of money, but society hasn't decided what it wants.
So you can make money work for you, basically.
Well, what happens if you had money? Suppose you said to people, we're going to have we're very unhappy with the euro. The British were right about Brexit. We're going to go and join them, right? The new North Sea Empire, we'll call it. But our guilders are going to be different from the old guilders, because our guilders, because we want to fight terrorism and crime, things like that. So our guilders will have a kill switch. At any time, the government can see the guilders that belong to a person. I can flick a switch and I can turn off all of your guilders. And there's a lot of people out there that would say, great, that's exactly what we want. Of course the government should be able to.
And there are a lot of people who say, well, that's privacy conflicts, let's not do that at all.
Absolutely. And so what I'm saying is, these are fundamental discussions about where we want to go in the future. And what should be happening is there should be an informed debate in society. We have smart money coming. It's going to be here. So what do we want it to do? And then we can turn to the technologists and say, can you make this work for us? And I think an inevitable outcome of that process, well, we're seeing it in Europe now. We're not going to have a euro. We're not going to have a world currency.
Really?
We're not going to have a galactic dollar. This is never going to happen. The decentralizing nature of the technology means we're moving into a world that's going to have lots more different monies.
Okay, on that note, thank you, David Birch.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for listening.